Hey, Sens fans, thank you for joining us today for a special edition of the Senstennial podcast. Today, we just wanted to kind of round up a bit of Sens news that had come down the pipeline lately. The first one is the Ottawa Senators have signed Josh Bailey, the longtime New York Islanders forward, to a PTO, professional tryout. So he'll be attending Ottawa's main camp. And yeah, I guess we'll see how much gas he has left in the tank. Just off the top, Matt, I want to know if you really had any thoughts on Josh Bailey joining the squad.
I think it kind of feels like a Derek Brassard situation from last year. Um, there really aren't that many spots available on the in the bottom six, but if he shows up and really impresses a lot of people, he can definitely grab one of those spots. You've seen a lot of speculation about like this guy played for New York for the last 15 years, and why would he leave that situation in order to go to a new one if he didn't know he was going to be sort of making the team? But yeah, like that bottom six is going to have, well, let's be real, that bottom line is going to have a variation of Yuri Schmeichel, Parker Kelly, Mark Kastelik, Zach McEwen, Boko Imama, and then pencil in Josh Bailey here as well. I like the offense that Josh Bailey was, putting up last year. I think he had 23, 24 points last year, very similar to Derek Brassard's year.
Yeah, so he
um
had he had 25 in 64 games.
there you go. So I would say having that level of production on your fourth line is exactly what Ottawa would be looking for. And I also saw people, say, what does this mean for Shane Pinto? And I don't think it means anything for Shane Pinto, truthfully. So don't read into a PTO for a guy who is at the tail end of his career. Um, he, you know, he's going to be a solid addition if we do decide to sign him, but I can't imagine it's going to be hard to get a contract out of this one. I'll be completely honest.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get to some more Shane Pinto news in a
Yeah.
little bit. But yeah, I mean, he is almost 34, and I've talked to a few Islanders fans just to get some mixed opinions. Um, Somebody said that they thought Josh Bailey was a great player. Really happy that he spent the bulk of his, or basically so far all of his career with the Islanders, and that
Yeah.
he wished him success wherever he went. I had another Islanders fan tell me that he's washed, but not in maybe so blunt terms, but just wasn't quite the player he used to be, and that
Yeah.
his skill set had diminished quite a bit from the days where they were coached by the one and only Barry Trotz. So that's
King.
a factor. And I had another Isles fan just say, "Oh, you'll love him. He's elite." And I know they're being sarcastic. So,
Ah, nice.
um, I mean, all that to say, I wish him the best. When he was a free agent and it was initially announced that Ottawa had interest, I was like, not huge on it because defensively at even strength, he didn't have it last season.
Oh boy.
Um, but that's okay, everywhere else, analytically, it seemed like he was fine. So that was at least a little bit helpful. But I mean, hypothetically, if he plays on a line with Shane Pinto is going to be playing center, and he's a good defensive forward. So ultimately, as a winger, Josh Bailey would have less responsibility. Like you said, if he's coming in to replace Shane Pinto, and oh baby, I hope that doesn't happen. That would
Yeah.
be a bit detrimental, especially because Kubalik is also not a defensive specialist by any means.
Yeah.
So we'll see where it goes, but I think it's also really nice to have another veteran, even just playing through training camp. And he's a guy who's been on a lot of deep playoff runs. He's been fairly good in the playoffs. Um, and to have guys like Josh Bailey and Vladimir Tarasenko and Claude Giroux all kind of being in training camp, being around the younger core and stuff, I think that can only help your team. And the last
Absolutely.
and the last thing I'll say on this, before I pass it to you, maybe for any final thoughts on this one, before we go to Shane Pinto's, We were talking before the show. He has gotten Lady Byng Trophy votes in 5 of the last 7 years. So obviously a guy who is really well liked and must be a high character guy, which we know Dorian loves. And of
Yeah.
course, the main number one factor you need if you want to play on the Ottawa Senators is
Currently.
do
Yeah.
you have history with DJ Smith? And Josh Bailey
Yeah.
has history with DJ Smith. So
Yeah.
and that's all I got. But yeah, any other thoughts before we talk about Shane?
Well, I mean, to your point there is, you know, I'm not sure how long that whole DJ Smith, being a former player of his will get you on the Ottawa Senators for much longer, but you know, it remains to be seen.
I was gonna say
I
remains.
got to start my DJ Smith hatred early this season.
No, man, it's only good vibes until it's not.
Yeah, yeah, true.
That's so if the Suns are off to,
Oh yeah,
great start, then
if they're winning, we're good. We're up.
yeah,
But if they're losing, it is
riot.
absolutely like somebody asked me, how many games did DJ get this year? And I was like, if he has a losing record after eight, he should be gone.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
we'll have to see what happens there. It also depends what coaches are out there. I still think, Claude Julien, we'll see. But
He looks like a hot commodity to me.
yeah. Anyway, let's move on. So Shane Pinto. This one's
Yep.
quite interesting. So the other day we had Pierre Dorion talk with Mayor Sutcliffe on TV about the Ottawa Senators, and I believe it was then. And correct me if I'm wrong. I honestly didn't listen to the interview quite yet. Been busy with work, but it was there where I think Shane. It was talked about or asked whether Shane Pinto would be getting a contract, and he said that he wanted to get a Pinto extension done by the following week
Yeah.
before main camp starts. That was his goal, and that they were going to
Yeah.
work hard in negotiations. Well, on the 31 thoughts or 32 thoughts,
32.
I obviously,
There's so many teams now.
sorry, Kraken fans. So on his 32 thoughts podcast, I can count. He was saying that Friedman, sorry, was saying that he believes Boston and Philly were both teams who had called on Shane Pinto, and Ottawa had at least potentially listened, but they would want to send an additional contract out to get off the books. And the expectation is that they would be receiving a quality player in return. Now, that said, he believes that a contract between Pinto and the Sens will come to fruition in the near future. So I'm not too worried whatsoever. I think this is more one of those things where you see teams that they can't offer sheet a player. So they start
Yeah.
asking the team, like, hey, what are you doing with
Yeah.
this
Why
player?
isn't this guy signed?
Yeah,
You
why
know?
isn't he signed? He had 20
Yeah.
goals as a rookie. What are you doing? We know you're up against the cap. Like, are you thinking about moving this player? So I think it's just general GM stuff. Of course, they're
Yeah.
going to reach out when they see a situation like what Ottawa has. And I think Ottawa, I mean, it's just listening. No harm, no foul. I think at the end of the day, Pinto is a player that Dorian has talked highly of. I think that they're going to want to keep him signed. So, yeah, I'll flip it over to you for any thoughts on that, though.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously third-hand information because, I haven't listened to the podcast, you haven't listened to the podcast. We've just been reading people's tweets about it, but it does sound like it's even less than listening. It's just he wonders if Boston and Philly inquired about him, and he thinks that if they were listening, the expectation is that a good player is going back in that deal, and that the team trading for Pinto is also taking on a contract. So I think it's a bunch of like, yeah, due diligence stuff. But at the same time, it sounds like the number Pinto's looking for is in like the mid 2 millions, which I think is completely reasonable for a guy who just put up 20 goals in his rookie year. I wonder you know, if there was a way you could finagle some type of contract with Pinto that, his first year is on the lower end of the money and the second year is on the higher end. So, his first year is like 1 point something, and then his second year is like 3 something, just to sort of offset and to like work around the cap, not work around, but work through the cap. I think a deal gets done shortly because they need their third line center. Because there's going to be question marks about Josh Norris's health. Um, and you
Sorry, just
don't,
to interject though, even if they gave Pinto a backloaded contract, the AAV would be the same.
I understand that, but if you're able to like if you have a lower cap hit on year one as opposed to year two, it affects the cap less.
No, it's the AAV of the contracts is what the cap hit is.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I was like, wait, I don't think they could do that. That'd be great, but yeah, no, they can't.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
I feel like an idiot.
no, it's all good. But yeah, this is why we talk about these things because you
Yeah.
never know. But yeah, I think for me, I was talking about it with someone yesterday. I think the most likely scenario, and I think Mathieu Joseph is a great defensive forward, but you look at his money, he's making almost 3 mil for the next 3 years. I think Ottawa is gonna have to attach a draft pick or something and ship him out, and then if they waive Parker Kelly, the total money that they have available is 4.6 mil. They can get Pinto signed, and if they
Yeah,
like Josh Bailey, they could get him signed.
exactly. And that's the thing, right? Like Joseph is one of those guys that like it's going to suck to see him go if he does go, but you know, Kubalik has a third line spot locked up. And quite frankly, like looking at the play of Ridley Gregg last year, like he looks like a third line player as it stands right now. So is Joseph going to be playing on your fourth line? And like, is that the rationale? And if that's the case, that's way too much money to be paying a guy for fourth line minutes. So yeah, then Josh Bailey makes a lot more sense. Um, and getting rid of Parker Kelly just makes sense in general. Like
Yeah.
that's life. So I'm interested to see what happens. I've seen a lot of ideas floating around, moving Kubalik, moving Brandstrom, and moving Joseph, and all of those are realistic options. Um, but I would probably say the Joseph one is the least detrimental to the team. And if all you have to attach to it is, you know, a middling prospect or a third round pick, then so be it. I hate giving away picks for nothing, but that's the situation we're kind of in. So that's life.
Yeah, and I know we can play the coulda, shoulda, woulda game, but last year before Joseph got his 4-year contract, I was of the mind that you give him a 1-year prove it deal because he had come off of that hot streak where he was playing like top line minutes, I think, with Norris and Kachuk, and he
Yeah.
had like 11 points in 12 games or something
Yeah.
ridiculous. So I was of the mind instead of giving him 4 years, which at the time I think a lot of people were
Oh
generally
yeah.
happy with.
I
Like,
mean,
I don't
I
think,
remember being fine with it.
yeah, I think the problem is that exactly what my worry was came to fruition, which is too bad. And
Yeah.
that's that he regressed. He had an injury. He couldn't
Yeah.
produce at 5-on-5. As soon as that Mott Pinto Joseph line got split up, they were just not nearly as effective.
Yeah.
If he
Absolutely.
if this year, they had re-signed him and he was making league min or just over a mil or something, and he was playing your fourth line, that'd be perfect. You wouldn't
Oh
have
yeah.
cap issues.
Yeah.
Pinto would already be signed. Like everything would be groovy. I think that signing that 4-year deal, and frankly, it's like the only bad contract on the team, in my opinion. And he could bounce back. I just think
Yeah.
in the situation you have, you could really improve your depth by just signing Pinto. Josh Bailey is still a third line caliber player. Um, defensive game could use a bit of work, but he can still play bottom 6 minutes and give
Yeah.
you some more offense than Ottawa's had on the bottom six in the past few seasons. So, um, Anyway, on that note, we'll go into our our little short ad break here, and then we'll pop back with a couple more topics that we want to cover before we call it a day. Sens fans, football is back in full swing with another week of epic games. And who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of two new offers every game day this September. So get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN, that is THPN, to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8 Hope NY or text Hope NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible game resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Welcome back, everyone. So I think this is kind of news that people were expecting at some point. It was rumored, I think earlier this summer, that Cyril Leeder might return to the Ottawa Senators in some capacity once Michael Andlauer got keys to the kingdom. And today I saw, obviously, Leams Martian got to it just before I did. But he said today that it looked like Cyril Leeder had stepped down as CEO for Myers and that he was going to be moving into a position with the Ottawa Senators in the near future. I had heard the same from someone who was my source, which was kind of cool. Sadly, didn't get to it as quick on the
Yeah.
draw, but that's life, baby. Now I know how the insiders feel when someone beats them to the punch. Um, but yeah, so cool news. So it looks like Cyril Leeder is likely going to be joining the Ottawa Senators in some capacity in the near future, which is cool. It'd be great to have him back in the organization. I think generally people had a lot of positive things to say about him during the time he spent with the organization. So yeah, Matt, any thoughts on Cyril Leeder potentially making a return to the Ottawa Senators?
Honestly, I think it's really cool. I know like Leader was a part of some of the best times of the Ottawa Senators, and it was weird when he left. Um, Clearly the vibes are good. And he's back. I'm excited for that because things are going to be put in motion shortly, and we're going to see Andlauer have the keys to the kingdom, as you said, and Alfie's going to come. Steve Staios is going to come. Everybody's going to be here, so
The
the vibes are
party
going to be
is
up.
starting.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's good to see that Leader is leading the charge.
Oh, I hate you so much.
And that's the episode, everybody. Have a great.
Um, well, one last thing I want to touch on before we call it a day here. Wrapping up the news cycle with game one of the prospect showcase. Ottawa was playing the New Jersey Devils, and they came out with a 5-2 win. So that was nice to see. Tarun Fizer, sorry, out of nowhere, dude
Yeah,
was
from
playing
the
in the
top rope.
yeah, he was playing the ECHL last year. He had 50 points in 62 games. He comes in and gets a hat trick and gets an assist on Ridley Gregg, one of Ridley Gregg's goals. Or sorry, I think Ridley Gregg had one goal. My apologies. And then Roby Yarventi had the other goal. So seeing him just kind of come out of nowhere and light it up. I mean, hey, I'd like to see him get another game, another few games, see what
Yeah,
else he can show at the rookie showcase. And hey, maybe he gets a training camp, like a main camp invite. It would be nice to see what he could do and set himself up to be a signing for the Belleville Senators, I think. And, he's not an old player. He's only, what was it, 22 years old. He's from
yeah.
Alberta. So he's a Canadian guy. Why not? Take a chance on a guy like that, see what he can provide. At one point, he was a captain in the WHL for the Victoria Royals. So he's obviously a guy who was able to be a good leader in the locker room. And you need guys like that, of course, especially on a Belleville team where I think it's not like the Belleville Senators of a couple of years ago. There's a lot of young players there. So
Yeah.
it's always nice to have some guys you can rely on to lead a group like that. So yeah, any thoughts, Matt, for you on Mr. Fizer or Ridley Gregg or Roby or Venti all find themselves on the score sheet today?
Yeah, it actually sounds like all 3 of them had 3 points, and, I mean, that's, I guess, not surprising. Roby and Ridley are 2 of our best prospects, and Pfizer was just seemingly along for the ride, but clearly not when he put up the same point totals. I would be not like, wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if he gets a ATO or a PTO with Belleville, or it just ends up being a contract because they need depth down there. Um, I also saw that Marilinen seemed to have had a good game. Obviously, didn't have a chance to watch the game, but from what I understand, the Sens were able to beat one of the best prospect pools in the NHL. So that's not exactly an easy feat. So it's good. It's good that we got the W. The boys are feeling happy. It sounds like Zach Stachuk is the captain for the entire tournament, and I was a little surprised by that. That he kind of jumped Ridley Gregg in terms of like uh, the leadership and captain position, especially with Ridley being a captain of his Brandon Wheat Kings team a few years back. So good for a Stapchuk. Good for the team getting the dub, and let's hope they keep it rolling.
Yeah, and on that note, that's really all we got for you today. And uh, you know, potentially in the future, we'll do some more weekly wrap ups of Sens news because they're kind of fun just to kind of see what's going on in the world of Sens. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you all enjoyed that one, and we'll catch you the next time. Go Sens, go, baby.
Go Sens go.